Harry Warden spent the next year in the state mental hospital. Exactly 1 year later, on Valentine's Day, he came back to town. He killed the 2 supervisors who had left their posts the year before. Then he cut out their hearts and stuffed them into heart-shaped candy boxes. That night at the dance, he found the boxes, blood dripping out the sides. Inside was a note, a warning from Harry, never to hold a Valentine's dance ever again. Every February 14th, Harry comes back to town, his pickaxe stained with blood, waiting in the shadows of the Henniger mine, just for someone to kill, should they not heed his warning.
So greetings, fellow insomniacs. It's your friend and fright, good old Chunky Larry, and this is a very special episode of the show. Usually when you say it's a special episode of the show, it's still basically the same thing. Me sitting on a Zoom call with somebody and having a conversation. In this situation, we're doing something kind of completely different. We're here live at the Sinister Creature Con Summer Edition, and I am sitting with an absolute Renaissance man. This person is not only a carpenter, a rock star, actor, Shakespearean-trained actor. He is also, at one point, an absolute murderer. In the 80s, he was big into murder. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Peter Cowper.
Hi, everyone.
Peter, do you prefer Peter? Or?
Peter's fine, yeah.
Okay, because I know that you have a couple of names that you go by.
Well, I have a little credit from My Bloody Valentine as Peter Cowper, but then after that, when I graduated from theater school, I changed my name to Liam Blackwood, L-E-A-M Blackwood, for personal reasons. So my film credits and theater and television are this long, but only one little thing from My Bloody Valentine is Peter Cowper.
So I want to get into all of that, and I want to get into My Bloody Valentine, obviously, but I want to start off with kind of the early. Is it Peter or is it Liam?
Peter. Just say Peter.
Okay, so let's talk young Peter. I know that you are a Navy brat, so you had to move around a lot, right?
Yeah, Nova Scotia. From London. I was born outside of London, England.
Okay.
My dad was in the Navy, the Canadian Navy. Met my mom after the war. She was a Londoner, and then ergo, I came along, and we moved to the base in Nova Scotia.
And so, in that sense, do you have dual citizenship if you were born in London?
No, my mom marched me down to immigration when I was 25 by my ear, and said, you're going to become a Canadian citizen. But now that I live in the States, I have dual American and Canadian citizenship.
And does that make it easier for you?
Oh, yeah, sure.
In terms of, especially with what you do, you get to travel a lot.
Yeah, I can use two passports.
Yeah. And so coming up, your first love, is it music? Is it building things? What is the thing that you automatically kind of gravitated towards?
It's a double entente. I was always into building. Where I lived in the country after my dad had an accident in the Navy, so we retired to Quebec, outside in the country where he grew up as a young boy. And believe it or not, we moved into a log cabin. He wanted to live on this road. Yeah. And the only place was this tar-papered log cabin. And my mom, being a Londoner, she was aghast. Like a wood stove.
She was kind of
posh, oil heating.
Would you say?
Yeah, but back to your question, up the road there was a farmer who he used to buy up big farms, cut them into little parcels, and renovate the house and the barn into what was a dairy barn. He'd make it into a horse barn. So one summer when I was quite young, I think 12 or so, he had me as his apprentice, basically hauling cement and chopping up rocks. And that was the beginnings of my love for carpentry and timber framing, because all these houses were old timber frame houses, that were built in the early 1800s.
And so when you are doing this, you assume that that's kind of going to be your career trajectory, or is it just something you're doing as a job, but you think, oh, I'm pretty good at this?
No, as a kid, you had all kinds of hobbies, and my biggest love was hockey. I was a goaltender for the junior team, the senior team, and then I was picked to go play at a university team, but unfortunately, one day I was teaching my best friend how to ride a motorcycle, and he drove us through a barbed wire fence.
That kind of
that was the end of that
dream, huh?
Yeah, that was that.
So I know that the story of you finding acting is kind of an interesting one because you started first with music, correct?
Yeah, I played in a local rock and roll band, or a couple of them. Yeah.
And what'd you play?
Sax, flute, harmonica, sung.
Nice. Mm-hmm. And so when you were found for Jesus Christ Superstar, were you singing? What were you doing?
We were playing in a roadhouse, and every weekend this sort of interesting woman would come and sit in the front row, and just like freaking us out a bit because she was there all the time.
Yeah.
And she had a notepad, and she was taking notes. And unbeknownst to us, she was also at another show, another band that we knew. And her deal was she was putting together the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar.
And this is a stage play, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and so she blended both our bands together. And finally, at the end of our gig, she came up and said, I wonder if you guys would be interested in doing this music festival. I've got the land, and we'll build a stage, and we have to rehearse over the whole winter in Montreal in a church basement. And we're like, yeah, sure, okay, we'll try that. So that was my first introduction to acting.
So what's your favorite song in Jesus Christ Superstar?
I only want to say, if there is a way, take this cup away from me, for I have...
I love it. Mine is Heaven on Their Minds.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a beautiful, the composition of that is just tremendous. But you played Jesus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so...
I was a lot skinnier then.
So when you do this, is that kind of an aha moment for you, where being on the stage, getting that immediate adulation for the thing that you're doing? Because you're already performing in a band, but, getting to be kind of the centerpiece, be Jesus.
I think growing up in the country with my friends, and they're still my friends. I have two really good best friends in outside of Howick in Quebec, and they keep it real.
Yeah.
They don't let you get uppity or anything. That was an interesting part, because when we finally got to the field and we were rehearsing on the stage, there was a river that ran through it, the Chateauguay River, and I really needed to go to the bathroom. I really needed to go have a pee. So I thought, I'll just go bank down the bank.
Yeah.
But people kept following me everywhere.
Were they expecting you to walk on water?
I don't know what they were expecting, but I was like, guys, I gotta go pee. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So you do the show. A chance meeting happens while you're helping a friend out.
Oh, yes.
And that leads you to acting?
Yeah, I was a teacher. It started when I was 19 years old. I was studying at University of Montreal, and across the street, I was sitting in the windowsill. There's these kids walking in and out of this building. I was like, ooh, what's going on over there? So I walked across the building, and there was a receptionist, and she said, oh, are you here for the interview? Yeah, I'm here for the interview. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was for a childcare worker.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's it, okay. So I did the interview, and I worked 8 years there as a childcare worker, went to school. And then I didn't like the institutionalization of children, so I opened up, I got a grant and opened up my own group home with another woman. as a group mom, and we had a housekeeper, and I did that for 2 years, but it was 24/7, and I was starting to burn out. And then my best friend, one of the guys that I played in the band with, his dad was a dairy farmer, and in the wintertime he went with his wife to the curling rink, as they do, after milking and all, socializing, and a drunk driver hit them, killed his wife, and put him in the hospital. So my friend phoned me up, and he had a tow truck company in Montreal, and he said, "Do you mind? I know we talked, a few weeks ago, and you're thinking of, leaving the group home. Could you take over the tow truck business?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you think about driving a tow truck."
Yeah.
It's easy. It's just like backing up a hay wagon. "Oh yeah, I can do that." So one night, while I'm well into helping him out, I get a call in the middle of the night. And in Montreal is called Montreal because it's called Mont-Royal. Mont is mountain. So there's a mountain in the middle of Ile Montréal. Montreal is on an island, actually. And so at the top of this mountain, this old actor, probably my age now, but back then, he had met this young ingenue on a show called Snow Jobs, which was a comedy. And he had backed his old Buick down and fell into a ditch. And so his headlights were facing up into the sky. So I was driving up with the tow truck. I was like,
It was like a bat signal.
"What in God's name is that?" The bat signal, yeah. And so long story short, I towed him out of the ditch and stuck him on the back of the truck, and we're towing him back to his place.
Yeah.
And I said, "Where do you guys live?" "Oh, no, we'll just drop the young lady off here." "Well, the metro's closed." "Oh, use some money for a taxi." I'm like, "Well, that's kind of rude."
Yeah.
So anyway, we're driving back, and he said, "You seem like an intelligent young man. What are you doing this lorry for, this truck?" "Well, blah, 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 rock and roll, music, blah." "Oh, really? Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh, well, that's pretty cool. Oh, here's my friend's card." And it was a card for a theater school in Montreal. I threw it in the glove box, and we're driving up to his house, and I said, "Well, here we are." And he said, "Oh, no, just stop, drop the car right here. That'd be fine. I'll just walk up." So he was married, and he was having a tryst. So after I did My Bloody Valentine, the very first job I got was Snow Jobs. And I saw him at the craft table. I said, "Hello." "Oh, young man, how's it going? I love your work there, being a photographer, Playboy photographer, shooting all the women, lovely." "You don't remember me, do you?"
Yeah.
Not in the foggiest, no." "Mount Royal, wintertime?" "Oh, yes. Mum's the word, okay?" So anyway, about a few months later, I opened up the glove box when I was cleaning everything out, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder. And my friend was ready to leave the farm. His dad was feeling better.
Yeah.
So long story short, my brother knew an actor who was in the theater school, and he trained me for my audition, and ergo became an actor.
So you worked in Shakespeare, and before we started recording, you gave us a little bit of Shakespeare. Is that what you kind of, in terms of performing, is that kind of what you aspire to do? Is stuff in that vein, or is that just kind of where you got your start?
Well, it was a classical school, and apart from Shaw and Ibsen, Chekhov, Shakespeare, Molière, Tennessee Williams, all these classics, for me, they're so rich in cultural identity and the way the world worked, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, that can be applied to today. Seems like nothing much changes except the interpretation.
And the dialect.
Yeah. So that's what gravitated me towards those classical pieces. And I really like the way those pieces are kept to the classics. I don't like it when they take a Shakespearean piece and they set it in a modern era.
Yeah.
It drives me. I've absolutely walked out of performances. I just can't take it.
So I take it you didn't like the Ethan Hawke Hamlet?
Oh, I haven't seen it, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Just being truthful.
No, that's what we want. So you're doing this, obviously doing Shakespeare. You're working with swords, and it's the swordsmanship that lands you the role in My
Yeah.
Bloody Valentine?
Well, kind of, sort of. That's what piqued the interest of our sword master. We're staging a fight scene in theater school, and he asked me how tall I was, 6 feet. Most of the actors in the film are 6 feet. Because you don't know who the killer is.
Yeah.
So I was to portray one of the guys, and nobody knew who the killer was. The movie was actually called The Secret. The last 3 pages of the script weren't even in the script. So nobody knew who the killer was.
Yeah.
I did. And obviously, you know, the production team and George Mahalka. And Neil Affleck figured it out when they had to fly him to L.A. to get a prosthetic arm made that he cuts off.
That's a big giveaway.
That's a big giveaway.
Yeah.
So he figured it out. But back to the story, Jérôme Tibergen, he was a stunt coordinator, performer in Montreal. He marched me off to George Mahalka's house. And in Montreal, you have these walk-ups. And at the top of the stairs, you pull a cord and the door opens. And the door opened and hit a goalie stick. And I picked it up and flipped it in my hand. And George said, George Mahalka, the director, said, "Are you a goaltender?" I said, "Yeah." "You goaltender?" "Yeah." "Okay, you got the part."
Just that easy.
Well, you know, the reaction time of a goaltender is when the puck leaves the blue line, you've got 0.04 of a second to react.
And so
the skill, and he knew that he had been told that I was a carpenter, knew my way around nail guns and knives and, you know, the craft of sword fighting and this and that. And I was an athlete, a runner, a hockey player, et cetera, et cetera. So, we just had this instant chemistry.
That's awesome. And nail guns do come in handy in your overall utilization of what you do in this film. That's one of my favorite scenes, and it breaks my heart every time.
I know.
That's kind of the thing that I personally really love about the My Bloody Valentine, the version that you guys did, is that it's so different from its contemporaries. In the essence of, instead of a bunch of 20-year-olds playing teenagers so they could get naked, these are 20-year-olds playing 20-year-olds who are working class.
Not blue-collar workers.
Blue-collar, everyday people who just happen to have this situation happening. And it's a little bit easier to gravitate towards in that essence, in the sense that, you know, you're not getting these cliche characters. These do feel
Well, they have
like,
a backstory.
and they also feel like archetypes of people that you would know.
Yep.
But it's each character's given time to be flushed out and be themselves, and it's not like it's done at the detriment of the violence, because this is a violent film. It's particularly nasty with the extended version. And I think that it's one of those things, in just my opinion, in terms of the way that the film is structured out, where you punctuate scenes that are giving you character development as well as expository movement towards what's going on.
Yeah, the pacing of the film was generated very carefully.
And it's clear that that's the case, because it is predicated on who's the person under the mask. Is it Harry Warden? Is it TJ? Is it Axel? And you have to go on that journey, and you know, the revelation of who it ends up being is, it's there, but it's not. You know what I mean? In the sense that if you watch it again, you can see elements.
Oh, sure. Even when John picks up his girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's how the miner picks up
Yeah.
his girlfriend in the changing room. So you go, oh, wow. Is it John?
Yeah.
He's big enough.
And
Yeah.
so it's so interesting how this movie kind of stands outside of the films that kind of came out in this period of time. Specifically, the Canadian tax shelter films, I think, in the world of slasher films, those each have this semblance of heart that doesn't exist in the American counterparts.
Well, it's almost like those classic murder mysteries, the whodunits.
Yeah.
Before, so you're trying to figure out who's doing this, before the end of the show. It's kind of almost in reverse.
And it's interesting because the slasher genre is kind of inspired by giallos. And giallos, guys with gloved hands, usually hidden in shadows. And, the extension of that is it's always trying to figure out who's the person doing it. But I don't know if it's kind of the French inspiration that permeates inside of Canada, but films like Prom Night, Terror Train, and My Bloody Valentine all have these elements that I think make them kind of uniquely and inherently their own, where you can get kind of bogged down into the minutia of, we just need a kill scene here, nudity here, and...
I think because of the timeline, too, like in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, into the 90s, we didn't have blue screen, green screen. We didn't have copious amounts of blood that could be AI generated. So what you see in My Bloody Valentine is what it was.
Yeah. And the use of special makeup effects in this is utilized so expertly.
Oh, yeah.
But I have to imagine, especially because of the location that you guys are shooting at, that had to have been a tedious, arduous...
Oh, it's hard because Berman Studios out of L.A., when they had to ship, Mabel's corpse that came out of the dryer, it got held up in customs.
I would imagine so.
And all the other stuff that came along, hearts and, all the different prosthetics and stuff, and a prosthetic arm, like arriving at Canadian customs, qu'est-ce que c'est ça? Je ne sais pas, Yeah.
So, again, a lot of your work before you went into television and stuff was theater, where you get the immediate reaction of the audience from your performance. Transitioning into film, where you don't necessarily get that reaction right away. And especially in like the 80s, when this film is released, it's making money, but you're not getting that immediate reaction that you get when you're performing on a stage. Is there anything in your mind that's just like, yeah, I guess this movie made money and maybe we'll do another one, but I don't really, like, when is it that My Bloody Valentine becomes what it is for you, in the sense that you're traveling the country and meeting people and engaging with them at places like Sinister Creature Con?
I think it wasn't up until, I can't remember, the very first show was in Cherry Hills, I believe, in New Jersey. I think, is it Cherry Creek or Cherry Hills, I think, right? Yeah, Monster Mania. And all of a cast was brought together. And Sean Clark, who's my agent, I got a phone call in the middle of my life, and the guy on the end of the line said, "Is this Peter Cowper?" And I'm like, "It's the IRS."
They finally got me for tax
Who's
evasion.
this? I'm Sean Clark, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, okay, cool. And so it wasn't until the first person that came to the booth and asked me for an autograph and said, "I really enjoyed your work in My Bloody Valentine." And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's something I forgot about years ago, And to this day, it's still a humbling experience to have a fan base that appreciates the work that you put into it. And, that gave me, the recognition that all those years ago, this little movie is still special in some people's hearts.
So I know that you worked in television, and that was a good portion of your acting career.
Yeah.
When you decided to step away from television, was it just a choice of, I just don't feel like this is what I want to do, this isn't where I'm excited anymore? And is it like following kind of your muse in the sense of the direction that you go into?
There's an adage that says there are no small parts, just small actors.
Uh-huh.
And that was drilled into us in theater school for years and years and years and years and years. Same with looking for work as an actor. It was every week a professor would say, it's 99% looking for work, 1% work. And it was true. It was really hard, starting out as an actor. But I guess it all came to, after many years I toured for 6 years on the road, doing youth theater and for Canada and Canadian youth theater, touring all over Canada, doing Inuit villages way far up north, flying in on Beaver de Havillands, mostly doing all high schools and elementary schools. We had 3 or 4 different shows. I worked for youth theater out of the Globe Theater in Regina, Saskatchewan. So those years, those formative years that's what, if you can keep a bunch of 800 little kids, occupied for an hour and a half, you can take care of the blue rinse crowd that comes on a Sunday afternoon in the theater. But it came to a point where, after many years of performing and hurry up and wait and to get on set and hit your mark, say your line, get off, I was doing a television show with Carl Weathers, who just recently passed. He was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I was to build a house for him on one of the out islands off of Vancouver where we were filming. And our show was wrapped after there was an incident with another performer, and so they closed down the whole production after 2 years. And a couple of weeks later, it was hard to get a job because of my recognition doing street justice as Lieutenant Pine. And then I finally got a gig, an audition. I was in the parking lot, North Van, walking back and forth, memorizing my line, and all of a sudden I stopped and I was like, I went from working every single day for 2 years to one line. They're no small part, just small actors. But I got 2 houses to build this summer. All right, that's it. I'm done.
And so then you decide that you're just going to go
construction.
straight into construction. And
I've been doing construction all along.
You were doing it the entire time
Oh,
while you were working on Street Justice?
Yep.
That's crazy.
My partner and I would fly over, do 3 days, 4 days, or how long my character needed, or do another, Jump Street or MacGyver or The Commish or all those Vancouver shows, and then I go back and hammer nails. Yeah, so, it just came to the point where I had a young family. I had to support 2 young boys, and the iffiness of trying to get another job in the theater when I had a constant job as a contractor just made more sense, to hang it up.
And so it's interesting because you kind of start where you end up where you started. In the sense that you went from making big things, big houses, to making small houses in trees.
Yeah, I retired years ago from high-end building, these $1 million plus houses.
Yeah.
And when we were building on the island, I built all over, the place, but anyway, on the island specifically, with these massive trees. And sometimes you'd have to rig yourself down on the cliff to put in bolts into the rock to hold decks and this and that. And I'd always look up at these trees going, ooh, that'd be a really nice treehouse up there. Ooh, what a nice view that'd be. And then I'd forget about it.
Yeah.
So when I retired, it was like 3 weeks later, my wife caught me climbing a tree out in the front of the property, and she says, what the hell are you doing up there? Nothing. 2 weeks later, I started building a treehouse.
Yeah. Now, is that the red house that you?
Yeah, a little red treehouse.
Yeah,
it's an Airbnb.
Treehouse.
It's our flagship treehouse.
And so that was the first one that you did?
That was the first one. Well, actually, I built a treehouse when I was 12.
Yeah.
But the farmer next door cut all the trees down there at my treehouse.
So you lowly treehouse.
Yeah. Always a bunch of sticks and boards and nails and all that, Yeah.
That's awesome. So, since then, you've made all kinds of stuff for weddings, things of that nature. Is this the fulfillment that you feel that you need, or is this just kind of what you do now?
Oh no, I'll only do it for the joy of building it.
Yeah.
The money. It's just it's two little kids. I've built houses for mostly children.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them have been. Oh no, I built a yoga studio for someone, but mostly for children. And that ergo, there's a full circle, because what I did for 8 to 10 years was work with children. And, you know, dogs and children are my favorite people.
So we were talking kind of before we started recording about you being a Buddhist. And we were talking about that, you know, the universe basically gives us things, and it's just up for us to interpret it and see it and recognize it. So there's been a couple of things that have been so happenstance that they've led you to where you are today. So, for example, agreeing to help work as a tow truck driver, which meant you pulled somebody out of a ditch who pointed you in the direction of acting, where you learned swordsmanship. And then you also were a hockey player. You pick up that hockey stick, the director casts you. These are all these things. And you know, you start with the big houses, or the big barns being turned into little barns.
Yes.
From you making big houses to little houses, and there's all of these things. Are you cognizant of these things? Is this something that you kind of in hindsight find, and you just go, "Wow, this is a wonderful thing that I'm experiencing"? Like, do you have gratitude in hindsight of everything that you've been able to accomplish?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know, these circles in your life, and I often wonder, like, when that centrifugal force will just blow me out into another direction, and, you know, I'll attempt to try something else. So I never push myself. I just let it happen as it happens. And I find for me, you know, that's a peaceful way and a productive way to have a sane and fruitful life.
And speaking of fruitful, it's been recently announced that Blumhouse is going to be remaking the My Bloody Valentine film.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about this?
I don't know the backstory to that production company. I hear dribs and drabs about it, so I cannot really give an informative opinion. I hope that they respect the originality of the first production, MBV 81, and that they do contact George. I spoke to George after that announcement came on Facebook, and he said, I know some people there. I'm going to give them a call. So I hope, because just before the pandemic, my wife and I were in Italy, and I texted George, and I said, hey, we're just, you know, short hop away. He was in Hungary developing a script for TV production, much like Game of Thrones, but set in the 1200s in Hungary. And so we spent a wonderful weekend with him, and he told me more about the script development for his My Bloody Valentine, the sequel that he wanted to film. And so I hope that he and that production house get together and they can come up with something that's really has quality about it and respects, you know, what all those actors, technicians, and all the people who worked on the first My Bloody Valentine developed.
So it's interesting because Blumhouse is the studio that did the Halloween trilogy that was recently released. They did Halloween 2018, which is intended to be a direct sequel to the original Halloween. So there is potential that this could be a direct sequel.
Oh, I see.
And in that situation, I would hope personally that they reach out to you for at least a cameo of some kind, because you are an integral part of the My Bloody Valentine lineage. You are its monster. And I think that it has been a huge honor for me to be able to have as much time as I've had with you. And I want you to just kind of let people know where they can find you in the world of the internet, and where they can find you at your next convention to come out and actually shake your hand, look at the pickaxe, get an autograph.
Sure. In our preamble, my name now is Liam Blackwood, has been for many, many years, probably 43 years. So it's spelled Leam, Blackwood. I'm on Facebook, or you can look up, I have a construction site called treehousedreambuilders.com. You'll see how I build a treehouse and a couple of little things that we built along the way. And then there's an interesting video that the local news station out of Denver came up, and it's called The Little Red Treehouse Lions, Lyons, Channel 9 News. And so if you go to that site, you'll see me and a reporter hashing over how I built the Little Red Treehouse, which is an Airbnb. And if you're ever in Colorado, look us up on Airbnb and come visit, and I'll give you a free autograph signature.
That's awesome. If you guys are here just because of Peter or Liam, I do not blame you, but I want to just thank you for coming out. If you've enjoyed the conversation, want to find out more about us, you can do that a couple of different ways. You can start by liking us on Facebook, facebook.com/CreaturePod, by following us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube at CreaturePod. So wherever in the world that you want to find us, you just search CreaturePod, you find us. I want to give a special thank you to Sinister CreatureCon for allowing me to do this. I want to thank you, Peter.
And our DOP.
I want to definitely thank Hugh for helping me put this together on the last minute. This has been a huge honor for me, and I just want to say thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And as Ringo Starr, my favorite drummer, says, peace out.
And so, for Peter Cowper and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Creature Features Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. Listen, someone you trust.